Map Business Online video presentation, I wanted to discuss the process by which one builds a business map, just to give somebody a chance to kind of understand the thought process that a map builder or creator goes through. And I decided to use a data set I found for breweries across the USA, beer breweries. And I brought that into the map, and I typically when I start a map, a business map, I think about what is the background map I'd like to really have on the map. And so I've actually gone down to the bottom of the map and data box. This hovers over the map. It's got a list of layers. And on my street, you could always have no background at all. But on my street view, which is the typical default that comes up when you open a map, I looked at a couple of different options. At first, I thought I'd like to have the National Geographic view, which, if I zoom back to where I was, I think is a nice sort of got a topographic background for the map view. And then I was going to turn on the county layer just for reference in terms of a brewery map. And I also decided I was going to bring city limits in and do some demographic work on the city limits data. So these are thoughts I had about what I might do with my map. I didn't want to have the state layer on necessarily. I thought this background actually captures the state pretty well, which is typically for reference only. So I was going to go that way. But as I built the map, as I worked with the map, I decided that the base map I wanted to try this time around was the topographic map, which has got some nice topography, which I think is nice. And I think people who go to breweries might also be people who tend to do things outdoors. And whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I ended up with that as a background. And then I imported my data. Once I had the background kind of established and thought I had a sense of where I was going, I knew I had some brewery data, and so I went up and grabbed my data sets button and just navigated out. You can just walk through the process and go out and grab the data, and I believe my data I can find right here in quick access. There it is. And you bring that data in, and in this case, the data it had latitude and longitude, which is always nice to have. It gives you a sense of your data as you bring it in. You can see it down here. Here's the latitude and longitudes, the brewery name. So I was going to just focus on the latitude and longitude. You can leave the street addressing off or on, however it works for you. The application will allow the plot to take place. I did add a unique ID column to the data, which makes it easier to update. You can read about that in other videos. So you've got this 101, 102, 103. I just made that up myself. That's the unique ID level. It's applied right across the data set, and that allows Map Business Online to let you update at the click of a button. And I used the brewery on the name function. So I matched the label, or I should say the column, brewery with the label name. And then I imported it in. And once it was all said and done, I had my breweries on the map, which I then color-coded using the symbology button, the symbol button. And you can see what I did here. I just went through the summary, didn't summarize, but I did it by type. And you can see I have brew pub, large, microbrewery, planning. This was all in the data. And then I adjusted my symbolization so that the brew pub, which is more of what I was interested in, is a little bit bigger, and it's the color blue. And then you can see accordingly, I held the others a little smaller. And that's what they look like on the map. And as I mentioned, I also felt city limits layer might be an appropriate demographic by which to view some demographic data that I thought might be pertinent to breweries. Who drinks beer the most? Probably people in their 20s. So I did take the city limits layer and I did a what we call a calculated data column on the city limits demographic data. So you do a demographic calculated data column on any given uh, map layer, and I did it on city limits. So if we go in and look at that, you can see I took the demographic population data and added that up. Let's see what happens if I show this here. So I created this and I did a percentage format so that I could take a percentage of the population. Let's see if we can show the simple formula that I did. So I took ages 18 through 19, 20 to 24, 25 to 29 out of my demographic data, and then I divided that by the total population, and that's what gave me the population percentage of 18 to 30-year-olds. And that's what I've got here on the map, which I color-coded using the boundaries button in the city limits layer. And then I went in and grabbed the calculated data columns, and there's my data that I created, the youth population calculated data column calculation for percentages. And in Map Business Online, that shows up as a decimal. So I carefully went through and wrote in those decimal points values so that I could then assign this percentage based on color, the color based on percentage actually. That shows up here as well in the legend, and you can see here we've got the 0 to 75%, and that's how the color works. So you can see that the largest percentages are mostly in the cities. I guess that makes the most sense. So I'm not sure how much value that adds to the map, but I thought it was interesting. And I wanted the map to be more or less focused on New England between Portland, Maine, and Burlington, Vermont, which is the areas that I'm most familiar with. And now if I close my toolbar up here and I minimize my navigation bar there, then I can grab a screen cap of this. So let's say if I was going to do that, I might move my legend to a place where it doesn't have a lot of data. But you can see I could actually open up some of the different brew companies and leave them open on the map if I felt that was worthwhile. It gives me a list because I got a bunch right there. It's a neat little map, really, when you're thinking about brewing. You can see in the Portland, Maine area, there's quite a few breweries, and it's really an incredible beer town now. And if I just click on some of them here, maybe some of you have seen these actual breweries. So you can get this map set up just the way you want it, move some of these other things out of the way, and you can share it as an interactive web map using Map Business Online. And in this case, all I wanted to do was get a snippet of it. So I'm just using my snippet tool and creating a little map image, which I will then save as a brewery map. We'll call it Brew Map 1. And that would save into my picture file. And that's how I would build a quick business map. Pick a background, pick some map layers that are going to be appropriate for the map view. And in this case, I used counties and city limits because I felt those were appropriate map layers for the subject at hand. Import the data, find a good data set, add value to that data set where you can, and then color code and symbolize that information on the map. I did do that calculated data column with the demographic data. That was sort of an added little benefit that I thought might help. I'm not sure how much value that adds, but that's building a business map from scratch. Have a great week, and let's see if I can figure out how to turn this off.